Hello, Rene. How are you doing?
Hello, Mahia. I'm recovering from a little bit of a cold. Not COVID, just a cold.
So
Yes.
I'm recovering from. I just went to the doctor. They had my stitches removed from my back, so I'm in a
Oof.
full recovery mode. As usual, I'm going a little bit too fast. So apparently, I've heard from the doctor today, and I've heard it in front of my wife. So I cannot. I have to take it super seriously. That I need to slow down any. The recovery is good, but I shouldn't go too crazy. I need to be careful what I do so I don't get myself back into trouble. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll try to team up with Margosha and make sure that you slow down.
Yes. But it's difficult. It's difficult because there are so many, interesting things happening. I mean, I missed the biggest challenge is I've missed the Las Vegas event last week that you've been to.
hmm hmm It was a
Was
lot
it
of
fun?
fun. It was fun. We can talk a little bit about it as we approach the end of the podcast, because I know that we've got some people that are really interested in learning lots about this law. And to not bore our audience, Magic has changed things around a little bit again, but that's good because we want to give you new things every time.
Yeah. So today, sure. Let's not talk about my back that is recovering. Let's not talk about you recovering from cold or the channel event. Let's talk about the another law that we have in our book. Yeah.
Mhm.
This week, the next one that we are supposed to be talking about is the law of victory.
Yes. And I love winning, and I know you love winning. So this is absolutely, I don't know, I wouldn't call it a favorite law because it's almost like encoded in our DNA. And there's good things and bad things with that. So we'll talk a little bit about some of those good things and bad things. But there is another phrase in John Maxwell's book, Around the Law of Victory, that says that when you're winning, nothing hurts, right? In
Yes, you never
sales,
judge the winner, right? The winner can.
yes, nothing
Yeah.
hurts. Nothing hurts. And in sales, we kind of say something similar where we say there's nothing that can't be fixed with a PO, right? right? Right?
I
Um,
remember at the very
mhm,
beginning of my career at Compaq, I had this great manager, Zbyszek, and he had this way of you know every month, every couple of weeks, you had to come back with the receipts and claim your receipts for the travel, kind
uh-huh,
of lunches and discussions that you had with customers, with partners, and obviously, every now and then I was constantly on the road. I was constantly talking
mhm,
to the channel partners, discussing
mhm.
selling, making proposals. So every now and then I would come back to the office and just bring all my documents, all my invoices, and ask for
Expenses.
his
Yeah.
signature
Mhm.
approval that they can be reimbursed. And his way of reimbursing was to basically take the invoices in one hand and take the POs in the other hand, and kind of publicly weigh them in front of people. Like
Right.
stand in front of everybody else in the team and say like, let me see which one is heavier. And if there were a lot of POs and if there were more POs than invoices, he would sign them off. And
Mhm.
if there would be more invoices than POs, he would just go and say like, "Hey, go and get some more POs, please." It was jokingly, obviously.
Yes. Yes.
And I
Yes.
remember once I was working on a really big deal. I had a conversation and a plan with one of the distributors to make one big order that would
Mhm.
basically sort out my entire quarterly quota, and then we would sell from the stock,
Wow. Mhm.
promotional
Mhm.
promotional activities. And the PO was for my quarterly number, one page. They were sending faxes back in the day, right? So I got a fax, one page. But to get this quarterly order, I had to
Uh-huh.
go to this distributor on many occasions, and they were out of town, and I had to travel a lot, and stay in a hotel and everything. So I collected a lot of invoices. So I brought the invoices and one page of PO to him, and he looked at that in front of everyone, and he was like, I think the invoices are heavier this time. And I said, like, look at the page. He looked at the page, he was like, oh my goodness, magic. I can sign it now. I can sign it now. This is a very heavy PO. So yes, yes,
Yes. So not don't judge just by the quantity, but judge by the
yes.
quality. Yes.
So I agree. I agree. PO can fix a lot of stuff, but the law is actually, I don't know. It's kind of, for me. It's part of, it is part of my DNA. It's the belief in victory. I mean, you don't take no as an answer. You always find a different way of of getting your stuff done. You always find a new opportunity, and you need to do it for yourself as a manager.
Yeah.
I guess that would be my thinking about the law of victory. But you
Mhm.
also need to support your team
Mhm.
in in finding winning solutions. So
Mhm.
instead of kind of a sitting down and saying, oh, okay, this thing didn't work, the
Mhm.
goal is there
Mhm.
and it has to be achieved. And how we get there, we need to figure out. That's the first. We need to have, we need to know what we want to achieve, and we cannot give up on this.
Yeah.
And I don't know,
Yeah.
Rena, I have two other examples from my career of this kind of a solutions, but maybe you want to give some examples of such an exercise.
It, well, yeah, and so it's interesting, right? Because this is true not just for sales, but it's in anything. And I love the last sentence where it states, "This relentless commitment drives them," referring to the leaders, "to focus, to find solutions, adapt strategies, and rally the team towards success." And so my big example actually comes more from the time that I worked. So it was right after the HPE Compact merger, and we had to merge two different SAP environments and two different environments for the partners to get paid. Right. So, needless to say, it was a highly complex IT transformation type of project. And there was always some kind of roadblock, right? And some data that didn't fit, like one company used Dunn's numbers, the other company used a proprietary customer identifier, and it was always such a grind and such a challenge. And both from an IT and business perspective, we needed to find a way to solve it, right? Find the common ground to make sure that we found a solution. And so finding the solution was the win, right? And so the thing that I like to think about is winning doesn't always come in the form of money or in the form of something tangible. It comes in the form of an accomplishment, and also it comes in the form of losing sometimes. What I mean by that is there's so much learning in the losing, right? And when we would run the release of the code and all of a sudden the environment went down, we very quickly had to find a solution, recover and rerun the code, as an example, right? Or when you lose a deal, you lose the deal because you didn't have the better price, or you didn't have the better configuration, or maybe you had won the deal but you couldn't ship it, right? We had a lot of that in COVID, and you couldn't ship it, so you had to find another. The customer still had a need, and you still had to go partner with other people to fill the need of the customer. So it's really that last sentence on what is that relentless commitment to find a solution that drives that constant need for big. So, I don't want people to walk away saying, oh, if you're not always winning, you're losing. No, there's a lot of winnings in the loss if you understand how to take it.
I think you need to find we always spoke about this kind of a recognition of a success, and I think you need to
Hmm.
recognize different types of successes as well to
Right.
help people to believe in winning. Maybe what I will do is I'll share my example, or maybe more than one
Hmm.
example with kind of a leadership trait for success that I believe are important, and how those examples kind of connect to those leadership traits of success. So if you want to be successful as a leader, you need to have a couple of elements. This victorious leader has to have a couple of elements that I believe should be in place. First of all, you need to be visionary. You have to have a vision. The vision has to be clear. That you have to be able to clearly communicate that vision. You need to be able to basically tell people what you want to achieve. My example is my number one example is I used to run enterprise business for Poland. And when I went to Poland, it's another interesting 20 years ago. It's another interesting story. Poland couldn't achieve the success for quite a couple of years. For like 2 or 3 years, they've been struggling to achieve growth and quota and everything else. So we were thinking with our team, and we came with this vision. And the vision was to do, for the first time in the history of HP Enterprise Poland, to achieve $100 million worth of revenue in a year. The goal was 96 or 97, which was already a stretch. But I said, I just put this vision in front of everybody, and I said, look, we need to do $100 million. That's a number worth dying for, right? That's a number that it's going to be a record. It's going to be something interesting. And a lot of people doubted that at the very, very beginning, but people rallied. And we wanted to do it. I had to be inclusive. So what I said is, everybody has an opportunity to bring in, to contribute to the success. And we always talk about diversity, Renee, right? How important it is in a leadership traits. And that was one example of being inclusive and respecting diversity. I did not make any differentiation between, a product marketing organization or a sales organization or pre-sales organization, which were all reporting to me. Everybody could come up with an idea and show the rest of the organization how to contribute to $100 million. And I remember one of my friends by the name of Maciek as well.
Coincidentally.
Maciek Rak, who was running a demo center, like a customer demo center.
Okay.
And his idea, and I was really impressed by him being the first one to actually go in staff meeting and say, look, I found a way as a demo center to generate additional revenue, like something that nobody has thought about previously, that we can use to contribute to $100 million. I thought it was breakthrough because he has not been seen as a revenue generating part of our organization. He was always seen by everybody as a cost generating. He was running a demo center. He was spending money on tea and coffee and sweets and office cakes and this kind of stuff. Customers were coming, but he actually found he had a couple of proposals. What can we do through the demo center to actually generate additional revenue? And that has caused people to come and bring additional ideas into the plan. Yeah. Leader has to be collaborative.
Oh, yes.
This $100 million plan was not an effect of magic, just saying, we're going to have a vision $100 million, or maybe the other magic, bringing the idea of using the demo center as a revenue generation activity. Suddenly, everybody started to bring elements, and ideas, how we can win, how we can drive stuff together. It wasn't always easy. after Q1, it was good, but in
Mhm.
Q2, we started to slow down, and we had to be tenacious. And I understand tenacious is like pushing, right? We
Yeah, yeah,
had to
yeah.
push through against all the obstacles, against all the problems.
Just like
Yeah,
determined. Hmm.
we were determined. And even
Hmm.
though Q1 was doing well, and then Q2 was not that great, we didn't give up, and we were all very optimistic
Hmm.
about how the situation is gonna. We never gave up on the concept of $100 million. When people started to doubt, one of the guys came up with an idea of having everybody gave. He produced and gave everybody a T-shirt that said, "I'm fighting for $100 million," and he was giving it away, internally in the
I love
office
it.
to make sure.
Uh-huh.
Yes, it was such a great contribution. So we were finding new, and I was also helping, and leader has to drive this kind of a resourcefulness, new ideas, new concepts,
Hmm.
new ways of achieving success. And I guess last but not least, I have empowered people
Yeah.
to make decisions, take actions, and this is something that
Mhm.
we always talk about it. So
Yeah.
we've achieved $107 million. Nobody
Woohoo!
believed that. Nobody believed that at the beginning of the year. Then
Yes.
people started to believe and started to contribute and drive it like a crazy. And guess what? At the end of the day, the outcome was more than anybody expected at the very beginning. Yeah.
Hmm. I'm sure you regretted that when you got your quota for the next year. No, I'm kidding.
I
I'm kidding.
I didn't, because by the end of the year, I was actually promoted, and I moved
It was
from
someone else's problem. No.
somebody else's problem. But I moved. I was at the end of the year. I was promoted to take a director position at the European headquarters. So
Uh-huh.
so when we finished that, it wasn't connected. I don't think it was connected to this particular year, because we've
Hmm.
been improving. That was the final year of my 3 years stint in Poland,
Hmm.
when I was driving, from the business from kind of a little bit shaky. Together with
Hmm.
the team, we managed to completely turn the business around, and the kind of a culmination of this was this $100 million program. I don't know. I don't know if there are like 10 to 15 people, between 10 to 15 people all the time on our
Say
podcast. I'm
hello
just,
and also give us an example of a win or where you had
yeah.
victory and which one of these elements do you go to most often. Because if we can't all be perfect I know I have days where I'm not the most optimistic person, although generally I tend to be and optimistic doesn't mean naive, but I always believe that there's a way, and I always believe there's a way, although some days I need help, but I generally always believe there's a way because of the collaborative and inclusive approach that I take at work. And I know that if I don't, and at my life in general, and I know if I don't have the skills required, someone in the team will, right? And the ideas will come from anywhere and everywhere. And so that I think is also important for people to understand. I was listening to a podcast right before this where they were talking about Wozniak, who who could see the Apple II. They were talking about Apple II, so this is back in the 80s, right? And then they were talking about the gentleman who actually codified Windows and had seen it at the Xerox building. And he saw that it was possible, but he didn't know how so that was the big difference. He was resourceful and he was empowered, but he didn't have the vision and the collaboration. Where Wozniak very famously, right, worked with Jobs. Both of them were visionaries from a different way, but then they had this ability to work in such an inclusive and collaborative way. Of course, Steve Jobs is known for being very tenacious, right? Maybe a little bit too aggressively so, but it goes back to, you need that combination of things, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have all the ingredients. You just know how to find them and put them together.
Exactly, and many times the help will come from a least expected place.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
if you really believe in something and you drive this towards this vision, then at the end of the day, people will lend their helping hand because they want to be a part of a success. So you
Yeah.
kind of, if you believe in a success, you create a success, and that pulls people behind you, and then they start helping you, and they start, pushing together. And again, it's super important to be inclusive, so everybody who wants to contribute is welcome.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
differentiation. Even small pieces, even little, kind of a bricks in a big building are important, and they make the work move forward, right? um,
Yeah, I remember for me, a lot of that happened it happened a couple of places, but a big one that stands out for me is Guadalajara. So Guadalajara was always seen as a cost avoidance location, right? So the strategy was to take business processes or operational processes and put them in a lower cost location. And my vision was simple and clear. And when I spoke to the Guadalajara, human resources and all the leadership team, I said, my vision is clear. I know and I see this becoming going from a cost avoidance to a revenue generating location, right? And it took us 5 years, but we did it, right? We became, for North America, we established a revenue generating team that generated and was, even though the team was amongst the smallest, they actually generated, because it was supporting North America, a very large revenue, right? That really even paled in comparison to the cost generation savings that they provided. So that's another. And, I just went in with the vision, with a very simple vision that could be communicated, and other people could see it. And then I had to apply all of those other things to make it come to life, right? But the other key message is that it doesn't happen overnight, right? You had to work for those $100 million for the entire year, quarter after quarter, month after month, week after week. It's not something that happened, and probably it started happening before you even got that quota. So it's important for people to understand that it also requires that tenacity and that persistence that the law talks about, and that discipline.
Absolutely. No, it's whenever I go back to a lot of different, examples that I have in my head, when we make some
Mhm.
breakthrough activities. I mean, take last year's HP Discover
Yeah.
SMB experience that we've done. Okay.
Hmm.
Again, there were so many people that were helping. There was this vision that was, and I always give this vision, to the Intel team, that's Terry and Tal, that
Hmm.
took me after Discover 2022. They took me aside and I said, like, Magic, the event is great, but you guys are missing completely SMB point of view. You had your presentation, everybody went to the presentation. There was like a standing place only, but SMB customers are probably very much lost, in this
Hmm.
big event, and you should do something
Yeah.
about it. So they kind of inspired me with a vision
Yes.
of doing the SMB day. But then it was not my thing on. It became
Hmm.
a lot of people contributed to that, and
Hmm.
coming from the inside sales organization that was inviting customers and partners to the event.
Hmm.
It was the marketing team in North America that has done a fantastic job. Kathy Fletcher, hello,
Ah, yes.
if she's listening to us, or Samantha Button, who just made it happen.
Mhm.
Really, she was the real one, together with Isabel Kant, who managed to get this done. So
Those are
it
some
was it was
tenacious women. Yeah.
Oh, they
Yes.
were they were relentless. I would,
Hmm.
even during the event, I would just go and see Samantha everywhere, kind of directing people to one location or the
Hmm.
other. And then, many times we had problems and there were challenges, and people were coming up with those additional ideas. Like, when we were a little bit behind our quota for inviting customers.
Mhm.
Then we came up with this idea of rewarding, putting some extra incentives for the inside sales organization,
Mhm. Mhm.
inviting them to the event. When we run into challenges with cost for travel, so we couldn't take all the different people that we wanted to take to the event, we
Mhm.
actually decided to co-found the participation of the inside sales, which was actually
Mhm.
a great idea because they both attended the event, but also learned a lot, met the
Yeah.
customers, and learned from the experts. It was interesting, very interesting story.
Mhm.
This list of leadership traits, Renee, I just want to make sure that people remember about them. So
Mhm.
I put them in this order for a very simple reason.
Yes, I
I'm
love
sure
it.
other people just spotted that already,
They
but
have figured it out. They're pretty
they
smart. Our
already figured it
audience is
out.
quite smart. Yeah.
Yes, but maybe this way it's going to be much easier for you guys to remember that if you want to deliver success, if you want to drive your team to the success, there's like things that you need to do. You need to believe in the success yourself. Um,
Mhm.
Clear vision, inclusivity, collaboration, being tenacious, optimistic, resourceful, and empower others. Like
Mhm.
really, it's a super important topic.
Yes.
I don't know if there will be any questions, Renee. Recently, people are a little bit quiet on LinkedIn. I don't know what's going on. I see more discussions happening, under the posts rather than under the videos.
Mhm.
So, if there are any questions or any comments from anyone, is there
Mhm.
anybody out there? I see there are still quite a few people on the listening to us, but nobody said hello yet.
Yeah. We actually also are happy to take suggestions, team, if you need the calls to be done later in the day or earlier in the morning. You just need to tell us because we don't know what time zone you're in, right? Tell us East Coast time zone versus West versus Europe versus wherever you are, right? And we will do our very best to kind of mix it up and make sure that you get access to us live. We also magic post our all of our talks, and he posts the snippets. We've actually been having a lot of fun looking at the analytics of the clips of the calls, and some of them have gotten insane amounts of followerships and comments. And it's funny because we try to figure out, and it seems kind of random, but let us know. We want to make sure we add value to you every week, and that we can help with any of your questions or share in your celebrations, your victories, as well as help you learn from any losses.
Renee, tell us about the event last week as well. You promised everyone.
Oh my gosh, it was fantastic. So, the event, for those who are not familiar, is Channel Partners. They host multiple channel events throughout the year across the states, face to face, virtual. We had one in Orlando. I participate always in the Alliance of Channel Women,
Hmm.
which are always events that are parallel to the Channel Partner event. It's a great opportunity to also catch up with people like Jay McBain from
Jay.
our analyst team. It's also, we have Vince there. And Magic, you had a podcast recently with Joe, and Joe was
Yes.
there.
Joe
Yeah.
Panone. Yes. Yes.
Yes, yes. So definitely, it's a big who's who. Of course, for me, Catherine Rose and Jan Wentz. There is a lot of focus in that particular event around cybersecurity, a lot around software solutions. Of course, you and I come from a little bit more of a hardware background type of industry, but as we kind of look at these different channel events, and has how we look at how technology has changed. Of course, you're always going to need hardware, but a lot of the innovation and the speed of transformation happens in the software solution space. So I found that to be very fascinating. We have A lot of the same distributors, like CD Synex is always at the event. We have Microsoft is always a big player, and then you have other
DNH
contributors.
is
AT and
typically
T. Which one?
DNH is always there, I think.
DNH is always there. Yes. And so we always have a little bit of we share some of the ecosystem distributors, but it's a fantastic event. It was jam packed, as Vegas always is. I think my favorite session actually happened at the Alliance of Channel Women. We had a speaker that just went on stage for 15 minutes and shared 3 slides on the future of the channel and how it was transforming, and who would really become the bigger the bigger verticals within the channel that we're going to dominate as we continue to build on AI solutions. And that was very interesting. You would have loved it because there was AI everywhere.
Next
But you had
time.
to get
Next
you had to
time.
get your back fixed. So, yes.
I already have some plans about for the
Yeah.
travel when I recover, but I'll tell you
Mhm.
about that next week, okay?
Okay.
And
Okay.
when all the plans are finalized, and then hopefully I have an idea, and I will invite you and everybody else to maybe
Yes.
join me for the
Good.
very interesting event that's going to happen in a couple of weeks. So yes, I'm
I
going to keep
love
it a
it.
secret a little bit.
Very good.
Thank you,
Okay.
Renee. Thanks, everyone that is a little bit quiet today. We didn't have a quiz. Maybe next time I will have a quiz again, because
Yeah.
with quiz, people at least are answering questions.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe we'll have a little bit of fun next week as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and
Thank you,
we'll
everyone.
speak to you guys in a week.
Yes. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.